Welcome to Beyond the Games, your daily insight into Guernsey 2023. Proudly sponsored by SG Kleinwort Hambros Bank Limited, Guernsey branch and Jersey branch.
5 days of action on the water will decide the medals in sailing. Coordinator Nicky Barker tells us what to expect from the Ilca fleet and how to follow events even if you are stuck on the land. Thanks for coming in today. Really appreciate having you giving us your time to take us through what to expect from the sailing programme at the Island Games.
Well, it's a pleasure. Sailing's not a sport a lot of people have got familiarity with, so I think it's important that we talk about sailing as well as, obviously the football and other sports as well in the games.
I mean, I guess it's a really good platform for you to expose the sport to new people as well.
Absolutely. But one of the great things about Guernsey is we've got the Guernsey Sailing Trust here. And so that gives every island youngster the opportunity to have a go at sailing. But this is certainly seeing sailing, if they get to watch at all or see the boats as they launch, they get to see much faster boats and competitors who've been doing it for many years. So I think it's very exciting all round.
And in terms of those boats as well, so what have we got for this programme?
We're using a 14-foot sailing dinghy called the Ilca. They're previously known as Laser, and they've been sailed at Island Games since the inception of the Island Games, or thereabouts. It's a single-hander dinghy, but it's quite clever in many respects. It's one hull, but you can have different rig sizes. So when the dinghy was first invented back in the 1960s, it came with a really quite large sail, now known as the Ilca 7 sail, 7 square metres there or thereabouts. Over the years, because more and more people want to sail it, but the 7 sail is really quite large and you need to be pretty heavy to be able to sail the boat competitively and keep the boat upright and so on and so forth as you're racing. They've introduced smaller rigs, so they brought in what was called the radial rig is now the Ilca 6 rig, and that's more suitable for women and for youth sailors. And in fact, the Ilca 7 and the Ilca 6 are both the single-handed boats that sailed at the Olympics. And then more recently still, there's an even smaller sail, which used to be known as the 4.7 rig, but is now called the Ilca 4 rig. And that's for, young youths, older juniors, sort of aged about 14. So you've got these boats, which is the same hull, but different rig sizes. So you can keep sailing that boat as you grow older, or grow bigger. What we've done, or what they do for the Island Games, is they have 2 fleets. They have the Ilca 7 fleet and the Ilca 6 fleet. So we're getting over 24 hulls, and we're getting over 40 rigs. So we'll have 15 Ilca 7 rigs, and they will sail, for example, on Sunday morning, the morning of Sunday the 9th of July. So they'll all go out sailing. They'll have their 2 races. They'll come back again at lunchtime, give or take. They'll take the big rig out, they'll put a Ilca 6 rig in, and the Ilca 6 sailors will go out in the afternoon and sail the same hull, but new different rig, and they'll go and have their 2 races. And then the next day, it'll be the 6s go out in the morning and the 7s go out in the afternoon, and we keep flip-flopping like that all through the week.
And where are the boats coming from as well and all that?
The boats are being leased to us by a manufacturing company, Ovington Boats actually. They've been sterling for us. Very forward-leaning to help us achieve this. And they're going to be freighted over in a curtain-sided lorry. I've learnt an awful lot of interesting words. So they're going to arrive give or take the week before the games, and then we have to put them all together, make sure that we've got all the bits and pieces, which I'm sure we will have, but put the right bits with the right boats and so on and so forth before the sailors arrive.
And for anyone coming down and watching on the day, where should they go? What should they expect? What's the best place?
Well, it's interesting actually, because of course sailing doesn't take place in a stadium, and there was discussion at one point about whether we should try stadium sailing effectively, so racing in somewhere like Havelock Bay. But the wind is so fluky in there. It'd be great for spectators because they can see what's going on, but it's not so great for the sailors. They don't get fair racing. So the racing is going to take place primarily in Belgrave Bay because you get a good clear wind there for most part. We're launching from outside. Well, the boat's going to be kept close to the Guernsey Yacht Club, near the Model Yacht Pond. So in the mornings, you'll be able to come down if you want to that area. It'll be closed off to traffic, but pedestrians can walk around there, and you can watch the boats being rigged, and you can watch the boats being launched. And the expected launch time every morning is going to be 9:30 in the morning, so they'll be rigging from about 8:30, give or take. Launch, they'll then sail out to the racecourse, which is out in Belgrave Bay. So you can watch them from around the Model Yacht Pond area, the edge of the harbour. You can watch them sail out. If you're a member of the Guernsey Yacht Club, you can go into the Yacht Club and watch from there. Actually watching the racing itself is more difficult. If you own a boat that you can get out on the water, then you're welcome to come out towards the racecourse, not onto the racecourse. There'll be about a 100-metre exclusion zone around the racecourse, so the competitors get to race safely and fairly. If you don't own a boat, then maybe the eastern arm, you can stand on the eastern arm, maybe want a pair of binoculars, but you'll be able to watch from there. Alternatively, we're going to put trackers onto all the boats, and there will be a link from the Guernsey 2023 website to TrackTrack, or you can just go direct to TrackTrack, and then you can follow the racing online from wherever you happen to be, the comfort of your office. You can stand on the eastern arm and watch, and both on your phone and at the water, or indeed if you happen to be in Bermuda supporting the Bermudan team or somewhere else, you can watch the racing that way. So little dots going around your screen. So there are a number of different ways you can watch. Now, as I say, each day there'll be a changeover at about lunchtime. So again, if you want to watch busyness ashore, coming down for about 1 o'clock, there or thereabouts, you'll see boats coming in, re-rigging, changing over, and so on, and then the boats will go back out again, and then they'll come back in again at about 5:30 in the evening. So, there'll be aspects of activity around the yacht club and the Model Yacht Pond at 3 or 4 times during the day, and then the sailing will be out in hopefully Belgrave Bay. If we end up with weather conditions such that Belgrave Bay isn't a terribly suitable place to sail, then we have an option to lay a race course on the Great Bank. But that's even further away for spectators, so it's not quite so good for spectators in that case.
And I guess it is one of those sports where you need to build in contingencies through the week as well because of the weather.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got a programme. We're launching at 9:30. We're coming back at 17:30. That's a great plan, but as you say, if the weather dictates otherwise, then we may well have to amend otherwise. And as far as the competitors are concerned, they're steeped in the sport of sailing. They understand that these are the ways that things happen. Delays happen. Timings can come forward, but you have to give competitors sufficient notice of timings coming forward. And we'll just see how things go. We have a reserve day built in for Friday the 14th, which is already a very busy day in town. And we're hoping that we don't have to use that. And we will only use it if we need to even up the number of races held between the two fleets. So if the Ilca 6 fleet couldn't get in a couple of races one day, then we may end up trying to do it on the Friday. But equally, our race officer has built-in facility or flex within the race instructions to say that he could run an extra race on one day or another to try to keep everything on the timing track, because ideally, of course, we want the competition to be finished on the Thursday night, because we've got a medal ceremony planned on the Thursday night, and hopefully we've got an end of competition party as well. We'll see how that goes.
How tiring is a week going to be for the competitors? How used are they going to be to sailing these format?
I think for the competitors, it's actually going to be. It's not going to be anything unusual. Because of the nature of the competition, the island games, you end up with a lot. Well, the competitors come from quite remote islands, so a fair number of them won't have sailed as many major competitions as others maybe, or as people if you're living on mainland UK, and so they'll be less familiar perhaps with a regatta situation and sailing 4 or 5 hours a day for a week. But equally, actually, all we're asking of them is it should be just 2 races each day for a 5-day period, and then we've got a couple of training days beforehand as well, because these of course aren't their boats. They need to be able to sail the boat they've been allocated and get used to it. So we're not putting too harsh a program on them. Actually, I think the people who are going to find it most tiring are our local volunteers who are doing things like mark laying, which is really physical, and also just sitting on the water as a patrol boat, safety boat. You're not actually doing a lot, but you are having to concentrate on, how many boats have I still got upright on the water, and where are they, and you're sitting out in the sun all day. It's surprisingly tiring, mad though that sounds.
And I guess those volunteers, they're so crucial to getting this event off the ground and run safely, aren't they?
Absolutely. You couldn't do it without the volunteers. And in fact, we couldn't do it without our volunteer technical officers either, of whom probably more later. But, the volunteers primarily from the Guernsey Yacht Club, but also volunteers who just heard about the Island Games from the organising committee and signed up and said, I'm interested in helping out with sailing because whatever, they were interested in helping out in sailing. But a lot of the volunteers I've got who are on the water are people who signed up to assist with the Island Games, when it was going to be in 2021. And as a result of the 2021 Games being postponed, the Yacht Club ended up putting on a number of a regatta each year that was, to keep the team just ticking over. So these guys have effectively been doing a regatta thing every year in preparation for this for far longer than they would normally. So I think they're really, really delighted that actually, they've got the green T-shirt, we're going on the water, it's going to be the Island Games, it's actually going to happen now.
It feels very real all of a sudden, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It's it feels very close as well.
And you mentioned there about the technical officers as well. There's some experience coming over to help out.
Oh yes, an awful lot of experience coming over to help out. So our principal race officer is a chap called Peter Saxton, and he officiated at the 2012 Olympics, also actually laser class at that point, Ilca's now. So he's got lots of experience in that field, and he's maintained that. It's not that he did the Olympics and then hasn't done anything since. He's been he's an international race officer who's been working with everyone from the youngest optimist sailors to people sailing Ilcas and all sorts of other yachts and stuff, and he works at Cowsweek now as well. So he's got a lot of experience in a lot of different fields, which is really useful. Our chief mark layer is a chap called Ian Kelly, and he and his wife Sam actually works with Peter and Peter's wife Sue on the committee boat. So you've got that team of 3, and then Ian is the chief mark layer, and he's been doing mark laying for about 8 or 9 years now, and he's writing a course, or rewriting the Our Way course on it. So he knows all there is to know about mark laying, and he came over to try and instill some of that and pass on tips and hints to our team over here, who we mark lay for the yacht club, but it's nothing like, it's not done as technically as these guys need it done, or as fast as well. We've got more time to spend on it. Doesn't mean to say we get any better though, by a long way. And then we've got David Batty is our on-water juror. So he was going to be out in a small rib, really up close with the racing dinghies and making sure that people aren't trying to rock their boat along a bit faster or pump the sails a bit faster just to push them through the water that bit more. So that's what he's doing.
And talking about those waters as well, is much home advantage?
Yes and no. I think because it is it's a course on tidal waters. So if you understand what the tide is doing, if we're towards high tide, it's going to be generally flowing north. If it's towards low tide, it's going to be going south. Then that is, of course, an advantage. And if you understand a bit about how the tide flows around, in this case, Belgrave Bay, then again, that's an advantage. But the course is relatively bounded in size. It's not like we're going to be sailing from, say, St Peter Port to around Jetty to the back of Herm and then back via St Martin's Point and so on, where knowing the waters would have a huge effect. And indeed, when people go yacht racing and they have maybe a big regatta over here of people who've come over from the UK, you quite often put a local knowledge person on board, so they don't hit too many rocks and so on and so forth. But I think, yes, there is advantage in understanding the water, fully understanding the strength of the tide and how much the water level goes up and down and that sort of thing. But I don't think the advantage is as strong as it might be in other disciplines in sailing, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, and I guess you mentioned it earlier, but there's those practice days as well, which helps level the playing field. And I guess
they will, and it gives people the opportunity to go out and just get a feel for, the water, obviously, the tides and things like that, but also your landmarks as well, and just trying to work out where north and south is. Not that actually you need to know where it is, but it just helps orient you on the race course eventually when you get racing the next day. So yes, the practice sailing will be good, but we'll also be giving the competitors a mini crib sheet about tides and so on. So we're not going to just make it up yourself, try and find out all your own information. We'll give them some help.
And can you talk a little bit about our team as well and what we can expect from them?
Well, I'm hoping our team's going to do really well. They're always very competitive. There are several teams that are generally very competitive. But this year we've got quite a spread in age range. So David Aslett is the experienced past master. He's been to many, many island games and is a team captain. He currently races out of the yacht club here. He races a different single-hander called an aero, but he's a very experienced laser and Ilca sailor. So, we're hoping that this year is his good year. He's won team medals and so on, but I don't think he's personally stood on a podium as an individual competitor. He's racing Ilca 7, and also racing Ilca 7 is Andy Bridgman, who is he sailed with the British Norway junior training squads and so on and so forth. He now races foiling single-hander dinghies. So he's campaigning one at the moment in Europe and in UK. So it's going to be a bit different for him when he comes back here and gets back into an Ilca. But I think he'll enjoy that. And then in the Ilca 6s, we've got two younger team members who've both come up, like Andy actually, through the GYC's junior sailing programme. Arthur Collinette's currently at university, but he came back to race in Jersey a couple of weeks ago at the Jersey Spring Regatta. And Jess Watson, who's 16, she's been racing, with one of the training with one of the RY squads, and has been racing at the Ilca 4 Europeans recently. And she was also over in Jersey at the Spring Regatta, and they did really well. Jess won light winds, which is probably advantageous for her, but even so, I mean, she trounced the fleet, and Arthur came in third. So and both the Jersey competitors who are sailing in the Ilca 6s in the Island Games came below them. So that's always a good omen. Everyone still needs to keep training, obviously.
So all great signs, and a really great indication of how sailing can be for all ages, as well, isn't
absolutely.
it? Absolutely.
In fact, at the yacht club, we've got, I would say, a much older age range of people still racing the dinghies than quite a lot of yacht clubs. But we've got, I think, children out racing from about the age of 8 or 9, primarily with the junior fleet there. We've got a couple of younger teenagers who are racing with the main adult fleets, and all the way up to 60, nearly 65 people racing dinghies, and then in the yachts as well. Again, it's a wide age range, so it's really good to see.
Okay, that's brilliant. Appreciate your time.
No problems at all. Thank you.
Beyond the Games, proudly sponsored by SG Kleinwort Hambros Bank Limited, Guernsey branch and Jersey branch.